Hello, everyone. My name is Yogesh Kumar. I'm a director of product management at Juniper Networks. And I'll walk you through our journey into Junos Evolved, our modern network operating system for the cloud era. Let's first level set why it matters. And this should be nothing new to you. Our customer landscape has changed. The cloud operators are now the driving force in the infrastructure market. At the scale at which the cloud operators operate, the classical models of infrastructure operations no longer apply. The cloud operators have a significant dependence on the Linux ecosystem. They move really fast and they have little tolerance for anything that holds them back. Against this backdrop, we decided to take the initiative to modernize Junos, which culminated in what we call as Junos Evolved. Junos Evolved is addressing these market conditions and starting with platforms that address 100 gig to 400 gig fabrics for our leading edge customers. Our goal with Junos Evolved is to ensure that we enable new operational paradigms, we deliver technical advances while continuing to deliver the advantages of our industry leading routing software. Now, change has been our norm. Junos made its debut in 1998 with a new narrative in network operating systems. Junos is based on FreeBSD. FreeBSD is the open source or was the open source Unix operating system of the day. It defined what a good networking stack should be. We also leveraged GateD for the routing stack. Now, our idea was to build a router that was effectively a Unix server with high performance interfaces and where apps could drive the behavior of the system through native OS network APIs. We even sought to improve FreeBSD's networking stack through contributions back to the community. Now, this playbook is being replicated again. FreeBSD, what was FreeBSD before, is now Linux, and where people were leveraging GateD is now open source routing stacks. Now, there's a distinction in our approach to this too. In the last 20 plus years, we have learned what works and what doesn't work in this approach. We have kept the best parts of that, what works, and improved on the things that did not work. For example, one of the things that we learned was that it's really hard to synchronize kernel state from one kernel to the other. For example, if you have a dual RE system and your standby RE or routing engine needs to replicate the state from the master routing engine, that is really hard. It's kind of like doing brain surgery. So the operating systems or the network operating systems who are taking the approach of retaining state in the kernel, they will run into problems, or it will be hard for them to compete as modern network operating systems. So that with the debut of Junos in 1998 and this architecture, this was our phase one. To have additional features, increase the performance, scalability, we needed to make enhancements in the FreeBSD network stack. Now, our customers had requirements, and Juniper needed to make changes that made it hard for us to upstream. It wasn't in alignment with the broader direction community was going. So we had to diverge from the community and fork our own unique copy of FreeBSD. The advantage of this approach was that it was now really easy for us to make the changes that we wanted. However, there was a drawback. We could not leverage the innovation that was happening or the work that was going on in the community. For example, 64-bit code. So the community brought forward 64-bit code, which could enable one to address exabytes of memory versus the few gigabytes that the 32-bit could address. Another example is symmetric multiprocessing, which enables one to leverage multiple cores of a CPU or multiple CPUs in a core. So what we decided in phase two was to reunite back with the FreeBSD community to get these improvements in performance and scale. Our next phase three, was to expand our portfolio. We started using merchant ASICs and other components whose SDK and drivers were available in Linux, but were not available for FreeBSD. So we needed to use Linux. However, we also needed to retain FreeBSD because the fib state resided in FreeBSD kernel. So we adopted an approach where we ran Linux natively on the platform, and we ran the platform software, PFE software, as native applications on top of Linux. However, we ran the Junos FreeBSD as a VM for control plane on top of Linux. Now, this enabled us to enhance our portfolio. However, this was not the end game. We really needed to go to a native Linux-based architecture, which is Junos Evolved. So with Junos Evolved, we're trying to drive the future for Junos for the next decade of Juniper products. So we have kind of like hit the reset button with Junos Evolved. Now, it is a clean Unix-based operating system into which we have applied our 20 plus years of knowledge, and we have created a strong foundation for many years to come on which we can innovate, we can solve really hard problems. With Junos Evolved, we have brought in Linux centricity. For us, this was very important to make this transition to open source software, which is an enabler in the industry. We consume a lot of open source, and because most of the open source community is coding for Linux, it only makes sense for us to take advantage of this. So Junos Evolved has opened the doors to leverage this additional innovation. FreeBSD-based Junos had dependency on the kernel. It required a lot of coordination between the app and kernel development. Moving to fib state out of the kernel in Junos Evolved allows us to truly be modular with high degree of isolation between the components. It's now a lot easier to add new components since we no longer need to coordinate app development with kernel development. We have also opened up the ability for our customers to run their own software in containers on top of Junos Evolved. This is enabling them to extend the system and operationalize the infrastructure their way. Linux centricity was an incredibly important step for us to take in order to move to the next step, which is disaggregation. So everything we are doing now for disaggregation would be much harder if we did not take this approach of making Junos Linux native. For example, CRPD, which is containerized routing stack. CRPD is largely the Linux port of the RPD that we have in Junos or Junos Evolved, and also Junos Evolved. We have made it available now as an independent application. Customers who would otherwise run open source routing stacks now have the ability to use our industry-leading, Juniper's industry-leading routing software in their use cases. Same goes for our Sonic efforts, where we are leveraging a lot of the software developed for Junos Evolved. In Junos Evolved, nearly all of the CLI and user interfaces are identical to Junos. In fact, key functions and applications, including routing protocols and other services, leverage the same code. The examples of this are MGD, which is our management daemon that manages CLI, RPD, the routing protocol daemon, which contains the control plane protocols. They're all single sourced. A key improvement here is that all statistics and states are modeled, where the state can be uniformly accessed. This provides a logically central database, which is used by Junos native applications, but it can also be exposed externally through APIs to other external applications. If we could walk away with the key values of Junos Evolved, I think this slide would capture it. When it comes to a NOS, or the network operating system, the emphasis is not so much on directly consumable features, but rather on customer experience. So we're trying to capture here some key improvements in customer experience that Juniper Evolved is designed to enable. The first improvement involves availability. We have elastic scalability enabled by our distributed OS. What that means is that a Junos Evolved based system is able to use the CPUs on the routing engines, the CPUs on the line cards, as well as able to add even additional external resources, which will open up new capabilities in future. The modular design in Junos enabled will enable customers to run highly available networks, because now the apps are really isolated, and it really reduces the blast radius of software failures. Add to this new level of instrumentation that Junos Evolved has enabled, backed by its formally modeled state. The second set of improvements involve accelerating execution. There are multiple facets to this. We could have decided to build Junos Evolved completely from scratch, from ground up, but we decided not to make the mistake of delivering multiple and largely different network operating systems. Our customers want their suppliers to stay at the cutting edge. However, they don't have the time, or they don't want to take the risk to adopt completely new network operating systems. So with Junos Evolved, we kept the parts of the Junos that allow our customer to preserve the continuity as they make the transition from Junos-based devices to Junos Evolved-based devices. This also allows Junos and Junos Evolved to coexist in the same infrastructure and deliver one Junos experience. We did this by keeping the Junos core apps the same in Junos Evolved. These are the kind of apps that in manageability or the routing protocol areas that our customers have come to love about Junos. Now, while keeping the core applications consistent, we introduced a new paradigm of model-driven software development. Manipulation of the formally modeled state is now made available to applications in the form of a library. These apps leverage the library to manage and manipulate the modeled state. The intent here is to significantly reduce the time it takes to develop new capabilities by auto-generating much of the code needed that relates to managing and communicating state. This reduces the likelihood of human errors in software development. This reduces the software complexity. All of these elements are necessary for highly available software. It also provides higher quality software faster, and which our customers can deploy faster. So this provides ability to execute faster to both Juniper and its customers. The third area of improvement involves promoting innovation. Like I said before, moving to Linux centricity is huge here. We can innovate a lot faster when we leverage the innovation that's going on in open space with the community effort in Linux. We can move a lot faster when we can leverage the advancements in Linux that our customers and our competitors can get for free. With Junos Evolved, we have allowed our customers to bring their software and enable their operational models their way. We enable them to augment Juniper devices with the capabilities that are not available in Juniper software, using their own software agents. And the last improvement here is enabling efficiencies for our customer. Now, the way I would summarize these are the operational efficiencies that customers can gain by having homogeneity across the elements of their infrastructure with one Junos experience and common Linux toolset. Now we are going to show you a couple of demos of applications running as containers on top of Junos Evolved. One of them is OpenR running as a container on top of Junos Evolved, and the second one is CollectD telemetry running as container on top of Junos Evolved.
We are going to look at a third-party app, OpenR, running inside a container on a Junos Evolved system. OpenR is a routing protocol developed by Facebook, and it's mainly developed to be used in high-speed wireless networks. It's a complex routing protocol, so it requires multiple services from Junos Evolved for it to be fully functional. Running unmodified OpenR inside a container on Junos Evolved is a good demo of how easy it is to run third-party apps on Junos Evolved, either from inside a container or natively. OpenR, like most routing protocols, requires certain functions to be up for it to be operating successfully. It first needs to know the interfaces on which it has to run and discover neighbors. So it has to know the WAN interfaces or the PFE interfaces of the Junos Evolved system. Once it knows the interfaces, it will discover the neighbors on the interfaces. And once a neighbor discovery is done, if you want to build a unicast adjacency to each of these neighbors and learned routes and the next capabilities, it would want the route exchange and route installation to Junos Evolved route table to replace forwarding. Let's look at how Junos Evolved is making all of this happen. For the interface discovery, as you can see, OpenR is using the JET API service to talk to RPD. JET API service is already present on Junos Evolved router, and it is gRPC based and provides RPC services to the third-party applications. Once it learns the interfaces through the JET APIs from RPD, it knows on which interfaces it has to run the header protocol. The header protocol is a UDP and multicast based. It involves exchanging UDP v6 multicast packets, and once the exchange is through successfully, and that packet RxTX happens through the Junos Evolved network stack. Once RxTX is successful, the peer discovery is done, and it knows who its neighbors are. It's now time to build a unique unicast adjacency which is TCP over IPv6 based. This is basically in order to do a reliable exchange of routes with the peers. So that's why a TCP IP unicast session needs to be built with each of the peers. So now it's going to exchange our routes with its peers. The TCP connection again, cost of the job is going to extend, and once the exchange is done and routes are learned, it would want to install those routes to the RPD's route table and eventually the forwarding table. That again happens through the JET APIs. OpenR communicates with RPD through JET API and informs it that these are the learned routes and I would want them to be present in the route table so that forwarding is effected by OpenR learned routes. Let's now look at the topology which we used for the demo. It's a very simple topology of two directly connected routers running Junos Evolved. These are connected to the interface ET1/0/0:0, and we are going to see how the prefix configured on the other interface ET1/0/0:1 is going to be learned on OpenR Node 2. We are also going to see how a ping to the prefix learned is going to be successful from OpenR Node 2. Let's get to the demo. Let's start by downloading a pre-built OpenR container. The container is up. OpenR is enabled on all IPv6 interfaces in the router. Here are the list of interfaces on this router. We see the ET1/0/0:0 is up, and it is an IPv6 enabled interface. So OpenR runs on this interface. Let's look at the OpenR peers of this router. There are no peers yet. Now, let's bring up the peer OpenR container. When we check the peers again, we see that the peer OpenR is detected as a neighbor. We can also see the TCP IPv6 based adjacency has been established with the peer. Now, they are good to exchange routes with each other. To demonstrate this, let's advertise a prefix on the first node. We see that the route is in the peer router's OpenR database. Next, we check if the learned route has been installed in the Junos Evolved route table. We do see the route in the route table. We also see that this route is installed by OpenR by looking at the client information. Now, we check the reachability by assuming a ping to the prefix learned by OpenR. The ping is successful. Let's look at how route is unlearned as well. We withdraw the prefix from the first node. On the second node, we see that the route no longer exists. Let's also validate that the ping fails, as we have withdrawn the route to the host. This concludes the OpenR demo. The next demo is about CollectD telemetry app. It is a standard Linux app which is used to collect the system statistics. In this demo, we will demonstrate the working of ZTP and third-party containers. Let's start by looking at DHCP server config for ZTP. The key elements are management IP address. This gets applied to the device, the FTP IP address. This is a FTP server. We also have the option 67. This is the name of the script to execute. The name of the script as ztp.sh. Let us look at ztp.sh. The script downloads the pre-built CollectD container and custom config from the server and starts, which launches the container. Let us initiate the ZTP process on the device being provisioned by issuing the request system 0ice command. Remember, the default factory config will automatically run ZTP at power on. The system reboots and ZTP is activated. Note the configuration is set to factory default. A DHCP broadcast is sent out with device type and serial number. The server responds with DHCP offer, and the offer has all the arguments that client requests. The status of ZTP can also be seen with a show systems ZTP command. We can also monitor the progress of ZTP on the console and any syslog server if configured. Next, ZTP will apply the provider IP address to the management interface in any optional configuration like NTP server or log server to the device. Next, the ZTP process will download the script from the FTP server. Finally, the script is executed. The downloaded script will first fetch a pre-built CollectD container onto the device and launch the container. You can see that the CollectD server has started and is collecting interface, CPU and memory statistics from the device. While the Junos Evolve dashboard is used in this demo to verify, routes are being installed on a Junos Evolve system. Please note that the Junos Evolve dashboard is currently an internal tool, and this information can be also verified using CLI or other management tools. The script also loads a custom config onto the device. We can see the interfaces and protocol state. The current state of ZTP shows that it has succeeded. Thank you for watching.
With the short time we had available today, I have just given you the overview of Junos Evolve. Please feel free to reach out to your Juniper representative to get more information about Junos Evolve, get a deeper dive and see how it fits into your infrastructure. Thank you very much.